Hi everyone, and welcome back to Before He Spoke. Rich here, and today we are going to be talking about watch winders, and I'm going to do a bit of a review on my own watch winder, which I've got here to show you and talk you through. But first and foremost, I wanted to just talk a little bit in general about watch winders. So a lot of the time people say to me, oh, if I buy an automatic watch, do I need a watch winder? And to be honest, there isn't a straightforward answer to that question. First and foremost, let's deal with what a watch winder actually is. So, broadly speaking, two types of watch movement. You have quartz watches, which are battery operated, and which is, for the most part, the most watches that people wear on a day-to-day basis. And then you have mechanical watches. So the mechanical watch has an actual clockwork movement in it, and they need to be wound. And a number of mechanical watches that you buy nowadays, and certainly luxury watches, will be what's called automatic. So as you walk, there's a counterweight in them which rotates, and that winds the actual watch as you walk, so you don't need to every night take the watch off and give it a little wind like you do with the ones that are automatic. So first question would be what type of watch you own. If you own a quartz watch, then absolutely no requirement for a watch winder, obviously, because the watch powers itself until the battery runs down, and then you take it to the shop and they replace the battery and it's all fine. However, if you have an automatic watch like one of these, this is one which I have, which has a clear case back, so you can see the movement in there. You can see the counterweight I'm talking about. That's what rotates, and that's what eventually winds the watch with your own movement. So obviously, if you have an automatic watch and you have a number of those, and you're not going to wear that watch every day, then if you sit this down on your nightstand when you go to bed and you leave it there, depending on how long the power reserve is on the watch, eventually it will stop. And so when it does that, of course, the time function and the date function will stop moving. So next time you go to pick the watch up and you put it on, you've got to spend a little bit of time giving it a manual wind and then setting the time. So there is the belief that it's better for automatic watches if they are constantly kept moving. So inside the watch, the mechanical movement is very intricate and has a number of points which have lubricant on those to make sure that they keep running smoothly and that the watch operates and stays, more importantly, stays accurate and keeps time. There is a belief that if the watch is running constantly and it's not sat there for long periods of time, not moving, then that's better for it, and you will get longer between services, and the watch will keep better time. Now, I have to say, the jury seems to be out on that one. I mean, I am not by any means enough of an expert to know the ins and outs of that and whether or not that really is a thing. However, I think that there are a lot of conflicting opinions around about whether or not that actually makes any difference, or whether actually it's much worse to have that constant wear on the movement. So the idea of I have to buy a watch winder because I've bought an automatic watch, because it will keep it running better and it will be safer for the watch, etc., and I won't have any problems with it, and it will save money in the long run. To be honest, none of those arguments seem to be particularly well founded. So effectively, on that basis, watch winder would probably be a no. However, as you can see, I own a watch winder, and so you may be thinking, why have you got a watch winder? Because you've just said that they're a waste of time. The reason being that I think there is one very, very useful benefit to having a watch winder, and that is if you own multiple automatic watches that you wear on a intermittent basis. So for example, my watch winder is here. At the moment I've got 2 of the automatics that I wear on a fairly regular basis in there, but then I've also got my sort of daily wear on as well, which is actually a quartz. So when I was getting to the point where I was coming to my watch and I was on the way out or something like that, and I thought, actually, do you know what? I'll wear that one. And I'd go to pick up the watch, and of course it stopped. And then you have to wind it and you have to set it. And I'm quite, I like to set the watch quite precisely when I set it. So I tend to use date and time online, and then I set it exactly, seconds and everything, which is very sad, I know, but I like to do that. So the idea of picking the watch up and it being completely dead wasn't great, and it was quite annoying, and it eventually ended up in me actually just putting the watch down and picking up the faithful quartz Seamaster. So I thought to myself, right, watch winder, I'm going to double watch winder, and then I can keep these 2 autos, or any 2 autos that come into my sort of my daily wear cycle, and then every time I go to pick one up, it's going to be there and it's going to be ready for me to wear. So from that, I would say, in my own opinion, is pretty much the most compelling reason to buy one of these pieces of kit. The only reason that I've actually found to date, to be honest, is that idea of convenience. So if you're someone who's got a few automatics in rotation, or you've just got one automatic and actually you don't wear it every day, one of these things can be really useful, because it does mean that when you come to the watch, you pick it up and it's telling the right time, just stick it on your wrist and you're out the door. And of course, one of the best watches to own is the watch that you actually wear, and there's no point in having a collection of watches if you're not going to get any enjoyment out of them. So that, to be honest, I think is the most compelling reason that I've found to own one of these things. And it was exactly why I ended up buying this one. So that is watch winders in a nutshell, and that's kind of how I feel about them. A lot of people get very, very het up about them on the internet. A lot of forums with people going on about watch winders and saying how terrible they are and that they put loads of wear on the watch, etc, etc. And to that end, you have to make sure that you choose the right watch winder. So on that basis, let's move into a little bit in terms of this one that I finally chose. One of the things that it's really important to note with watch winders is that you don't want the watch to be winding constantly. And there's quite a few that are available which allow you to specify how many turns per day you want the watch to have, because depending on the movement that's in the watch and depending on the direction in which it winds, then you have to change the setting. So you want it to either wind, some will wind clockwise, some will wind anti-clockwise, and some will wind in either direction. So consequently, the watch winder that you have, there's no point in rotating it clockwise if actually the movement will only wind if it's going counterclockwise, etc. So you have to make sure that you get one with the right settings for the movement that you have. If you don't know what movement is in your watch, then usually a bit of a search online will yield all the information that you need. It'll tell you what the movement is, and then also you should be able to find what the turns per day are that it requires to keep it wound, and also which direction it needs to be wound in. Then you need to make sure that you have a watch winder that actually allows you to program those settings. Some watch winders in their very basic state will actually just turn on and they'll just wind, and you don't get any control over how many turns or in which direction. You then tend to step up to the next level, whereby you may have control over which direction, but you don't necessarily have specific control over turns per day. And then the top level would be control over turns per day, control over which direction the watch is actually winding in. So the next thing to think about is how much you want to spend on one of these things. So anybody who's looked at watch winders may have thought, wow, they're really expensive. And they do appear quite expensive when you first look at them. This is the Wolf Designs Heritage with the 2.1 watchwinder module. It's the twin, as you can see, and it also has some storage in the top. I think this costs somewhere in the region of about £450, which obviously is quite a lot of money and would actually be some people's view of a very reasonable budget to actually buy a watch. And so that is something that you have to bear in mind. And actually, one of these watches that's in here actually costs less than the winder itself. So these can be a little bit hard to swallow in terms of the cost. What I would say is the first watchwinder I bought was a dual watchwinder, but it was stacked like a tower. I bought that from Amazon and it was about 35 quid, something like that. It lasted about 4 weeks before it just started turning constantly. And it also was incredibly noisy, because one of the things that you have to bear in mind with these is that if you are going to be situating this in your bedroom, then you need to make sure that it's decent and it's quiet, because otherwise it's going to keep you up all night. And when it suddenly starts rotating, you'll notice that the one that's sat next to me has been running all the way through this video and you can't hear a thing, which is pretty cool. So let's get into a bit of a review of this watchwinder. As I said, this is the Wolf Designs Heritage dual watchwinder with their 2.1 watchwinding module. This has the storage in the top, which is actually quite useful. I'll come on to in a minute. But effectively, you've got a double watchwinder. Both can operate at the same time. It operates from mains, but it will also operate from D-cell batteries. So right now at the moment, it's on batteries and has been for probably 2 months or so. They are still good. Still getting the green flashing light there, the green LED that you've probably seen flashing, which is great. You just lift the clasp here and the front will fold down, which gets you access to the watch. As I said, the controls down here will control the direction that you're actually winding the watch in. So you've got clockwise, counterclockwise, and both. And then here you've just got a simple on-off switch and also delay. So if you want to, you can delay by, I think, 12 hours. So for example, if you've been wearing the watch a lot and you take it off that evening and you're pretty sure it's fully wound, then you can delay by 12 hours. So it actually runs down some of the power reserve before it starts to then be wound again. And then obviously when you go to take the watch out, you turn it off and it will stop winding. So this is really nice in terms of the actual switch gear. It feels nice to touch. It's very good quality. As I said, this is not, it's not a cheap piece of kit, but as far as watch winders are concerned, then there are much more expensive models, which I'm sure you guys will have all seen when you're looking for them. But I think from my perspective, the Wolf design stuff seemed to hit the right mark in terms of the quality and the actual watch winder mechanism itself being up to the task, but not being crazily expensive. So much so that you think you've got to have some, you've got to have like a, I don't know, I can't think of anything, like an AP Royal Oak or something in there for it to actually be justifiable to spend that kind of money on it. So this, as you can see, is winding at the moment. If we want to take the watch out, you just turn it off and then you simply grab these two sections here and the watch comes out on this quite nifty little cushion. This just compresses like that, you can see. It's quite spongy. And that will just compress and allows you to just slip the watch off and put it onto your wrist. At the end of the day, when you are done wearing it, you should just slip it back on. We pop that back in. Doesn't actually matter how you orient it, so it will go in whatever way you want. And then you just turn that back to on, or you put it onto the delay, as I said. And any second it will start winding. As I mentioned, the only indicator you get with this particular one, with the level up of this, which I have owned previously, with the level up of this module, there's actually a little LCD display there, and that's where you can set your turns per day. But with this one, the only feedback you actually get is this little LED here, which I don't know if you can see. There's a tiny little LED, and that will flash green if everything's okay, and it will flash red if something's wrong. So when it flashes red, so far that I've seen, is when the batteries are on the way out. So at least you know that the batteries are running low, and you can get some more, or you can plug in the power supply that comes with it. So yeah, overall, really happy with it. Like I said, the flexibility that this gives you is that every time you come to your automatic watch, it's wound and the time is set correctly and the date is set correctly. It's pretty much the only reason why I've got it. And again, as you can hear, even with this flap down, it's really quite quiet. It doesn't cause any bother at all. I have had this sort of sat next to my bed on my bedside table, and causes no problem whatsoever in terms of noise or keeping me awake. It's a little quieter with that front up. It's in fact almost silent than it is with that down. And then the only other thing to discuss is what's going on at the top here. So also you can see we can lift this top section up. And in here we've then got a couple of spaces where you can put watches. So if you've got any quartz watches, I've got a couple of quartz in my collection, and so it also gives you a handy place to store those quartz watches in here when you're not wearing them, so that you can just keep everything in the same place. And then on this side, what is really quite handy is that it comes with a little travel case. So this is obviously maybe a little bigger than say if you were going to get a roll, but it's reasonable to put in your bag, put in a weekend bag, or put in a suitcase if you're going away. And in here you get the space here to store the watch, and then what I really like is you get a little case here. You can see that it's got a bit of depth on it. You get a little case here to put things like, you could put, I use that for cufflinks, use it for collarbones, anything like that really that you need to carry with you that's quite small and might get lost. So yeah, that's quite good if you're going away for the weekend and you want to wear a watch and take a watch, then you can just grab that out, pop that in there, and you're good to go. And then you put that in your case, and you don't need to carry your watch box around with you or anything else. Admittedly, yeah, I'd rather it was one of the sort of watch rolls that Wolf do, and I'm hopefully planning to get one of those at some point in the near future. So when I do, I will review that for you as well. But it's pretty cool, and to be honest, just sort of saw it as an added benefit to the overall Watchwinder case anyway. So quite a nice thing to have. And then that tucks in there, front goes up, lid goes down, clasp shut, and it's, hopefully you agree, fairly nice looking piece of kit to have sat on the, you know, have this sat next to your bed, have it sat in the bedroom or maybe in the study. Sometimes I put it on my desk in the study, and you can see your watches there, and it displays them pretty well. So that is everything for this video. I hope it's given you a bit more info about Watchwinders and whether or not one is right for you, and also giving you a bit of info about the Wolf Watchwinder in particular. If you've got any questions or anything like that, or any comments, please drop us a comment below. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, bye.